Hi book lovers, welcome back to my channel. It's another month, which means another late wrap up for me. This time it's gonna be a wrap up from February. I kind of read a lot of books last month. I don't know how or why, but I read over 40 books, and I want to say a third of them are Julia Quinn books because this was the month that I got my ass into gear and read more of her backlist so that I could make my video, which I still haven't done. But this video gives me the excuse to wear my Penelope's t-shirt from Hello Lovely Box. They have a bunch of Bridgerton inspired stuff, shirts, mugs, etc. So go check out all the cute designs. Don't forget Lacey 15 gets you 15% off. Now on to the many books that I read in February 2021. The first few books that I read were Julia Quinn books. I finished up the Smythe Smith series, so I read books 2 through 4. Book 2 is A Night Like This, and this one was honestly my favorite of the series. It was so cute, so adorable. This book is Daniel's book, and if you've read book 1, Just Like Heaven, you'll know that Daniel is the Smythe Smith brother who was kind of kicked out of England because of a duel. He was part of an illegal duel. He hurt the other guy. That guy's father got so mad and just kicked him out of England. But now he's back home after a couple years and falls in love with his cousin's governess. Daniel's an earl, Anne is a governess, so this is definitely a clash of the classes kind of romance. Anne was a lovely governess. She was so cute with the little kids. Daniel is a sweetheart of a hero. He does fall in insta-love with Anne, but I really didn't mind it. It was just a very feel-good kind of romance. Not too much drama except with Anne's darker past. The whole Smythe Smith family was hilarious and adorable, especially the children. It was basically just Daniel trying to woo Anne into loving him and marrying him. So this was great, really sweet. I gave it 4 stars. Book 3 in the series is The Sum of All Kisses, and I was kind of really hyped about this one. My friends Lisa and Jessica both love this one, and they got me hyped when they told me that the hero was Hugh, who was the other guy that Daniel dueled and accidentally hurt. Sadly though, this one was only 3 stars for me. Like, it was okay. It was cute, but I didn't love it. Hugh's leg was ruined by Daniel during the duel, so he is literally a damaged hero. Sarah is Daniel's cousin, and she does not like Hugh because Hugh was the one who challenged Daniel and just caused all this drama and mess for the Smythe Smith family. Basically, Sarah and Hugh kind of hate each other and bicker a lot in a very unentertaining way, at least to me. I've discovered after reading so many Julia Quinn books, I do not like enemies to lovers from her. When her main characters hate each other, they just get so annoying, which is what happened with Hugh and Sarah. I was pretty much just done with them trying to argue with each other all the time. Hugh, for a damaged hero, he was kind of boring. Nothing about him really stood out to me that much. Sadly, it wasn't as charming as book 2 was, or even book 1. So this one, only 3 stars for me. And then I finished up the Smythe Smith series with the 4th book, The Secrets of Sir Richard Kenworthy, and this one was really bad. This one was like a 1-2 star read for me. It was so bad. I hated Richard the hero for what he did to the heroine. The premise of the story is basically Richard trying to find a bride within the month, and he finds the perfect one in Iris, who is one of the Smythe Smith cousins. He woos her, he makes her fall in love with him. He does genuinely love her back, but we don't really find out the truth about why he needs a bride in such a short amount of time until the very last part of the book. And when we do find out the truth, the story just took a huge nosedive for me. I hated Richard. I just could not believe that he would force this thing onto Iris. He was absolute shit, one of the worst heroes that I've ever read from Julia Quinn, and he absolutely ruined this book for me. So this one was easily the worst book in the Smythe Smith series. The next Julia Quinn book that I read was First Comes Scandal, which is book 4 in the Rokesby series. Kind of read the series out of order because my library, there were so many holds on this series, especially for books 1 and 3 because they have Bridgerton in the title. This one was really cute. I think I talked about it in my then versus now historical romance video, but I gave this one 4 stars. It was just a very lighthearted read. It's a marriage of convenience between 2 childhood friends, childhood neighbor friends. Honestly, not much really happens, I'll admit. I can definitely see why some people would consider this one boring, but I was just really happy while I was reading this one, so I give it 4 stars. This one is about Georgiana, who is one of the Bridgertons, and her her basically forced fiance Nicholas. She was put in this scandalous situation against her will, so now she's kind of ruined, and the only thing that she can do is marry someone or live her life as a spinster. She's about to choose being a spinster, but then Nicholas does offer her a marriage, so she decides to go with him. I really liked Nicholas and how he was in medical school studying to be a doctor, and that whole thing kind of bled into Georgiana, with her kind of sneaking into his classes, listening in, and also wanting to be a doctor, but of course not being able to. Georgiana was fun, her cats were hilarious. It's a silly, entertaining book, very fluffy and lighthearted, so I really liked it. Continuing on with my historical romance binge, I read Accidentally Compromising the Duke by Stacy Reid. This is the first book in her Wedded by Scandal series. I love the cover so much. This is a marriage of convenience romance between Adeline, who is trying to get out of this marriage, this engagement with a disgusting man, and Edmund, who is our widowed single father, Duke Hero. She needs someone to save her from this marriage. He needs a mother for his two kids. You would think that Stacy Reid would match these two up perfectly, but nope, things don't really go like you would expect with this marriage of convenience, because Adeline was supposed to compromise someone else, a sweetheart of hers. She goes into this bedchamber where she was supposed to meet that guy who was supposed to compromise her. It's super dark, so she starts trying to seduce the guy, but it turns out it wasn't the guy that she thought she was supposed to meet. It was our Duke Hero. They do get caught by people because that's how she planned things to go, and now they're forced to marry. Stacy Reid always writes such good historical romances. They're sexy, they're dramatic, they are angsty. Her tortured heroes were so great, and Edmund tries his hardest to not fall in love with his new wife, but he can't help himself. There's lots of good chemistry, good steam, so I really enjoyed this one. I give it 4 stars. I then read an Elizabeth Hoyt historical romance, Not the Duke's Darling, which is the first book in the Grey Court series. This one was great. I give it 4 stars, though I will say there is a lot going on in this book, but if you read Elizabeth Hoyt, then you know the kind of historical romances that she writes. This is borderline romantic suspense. There are secrets, a secret society, lots of action, kidnapping. There's lots of intrigue, drama, and it was all just really entertaining. Here we have former childhood friends, Christopher and Freya. Freya hates Christopher now because of what he did to her brother. Freya is now part of the secret society of women where she's a spy, and because of this secret mission of hers, Christopher and Freya are back in each other's lives now. I love the setup of their romance. They were childhood friends, now turned enemies, and even though I like the way that things played out, I do wish that we got a little bit more focus on the romance, because like I said before, there's just so much going on in this book that the romance kind of is in the back burner. One thing I will say that I loved about this book is that Christopher has a dog, so if you love a hero who's a dog owner, you will love Christopher. My library got the second book in the Will Darling series by KJ Charles, so I got it and I read it. I gave the first book in the series 3 stars, and sadly I also gave The Sugared Game 3 stars. I'm not going to say too much about this one because it is a continuation of book 1. We follow this one couple. Kim and Will still aren't really a couple. They do have feelings for each other, but nothing is really set in stone. Kim is still keeping secrets from Will, which was my big problem for book 1, so I'm still not sold on these two and their romance, though I will say I like Will more than Kim. Next I read The Bewildered Bride by Vanessa Riley, which was the last historical romance that I read for a while in February. This one I had such high hopes for, but sadly I only give it 2 stars. I really struggled with this one at first with the writing, which I just wasn't a fan of, and second, I just did not understand the hero's reasons for keeping himself a secret from the heroine. This book had so much potential too. I love second chance romance. In this one we have a newly married couple, but during their first married night, Adam and Ruth get attacked, and Adam thinks Ruth is killed and Ruth thinks Adam is killed. It's a very dramatic beginning, and I actually really love this part. Sadly, after this I just was not into the story anymore. It's been years since this night happened, and Adam is now back in England where Ruth is. They do finally come across each other again, but Ruth does not recognize Adam, mainly because her eyesight is just really poor now, but also Adam's whole body has changed. He's bulked up, he's got a beard, scars because of his time in the Navy. So I mean, I don't know how believable it is that Ruth didn't recognize Adam based on his looks, but I just went with it. But my big problem was that Adam just doesn't tell Ruth that it's him. It gets a little complicated because Adam pretends to be a cousin who is the heir of a baron, but this heir is actually Adam himself, and he just never told Ruth the truth about his heritage. There's lots of secrets going on, lots of no communication, which I was just so annoyed with. So sadly, this one was just not for me. And then I read Not My Match by Ilsa Madden Mills. I listened to this one on KU. It's book 2 in the Game Changer series, and sadly, I only gave this one 3 stars. Didn't love it, didn't hate it. Like book 1, I just struggled to connect with the main characters, with their romance. Like, it's cute, but I just didn't love their story. The heroine in this sequel is actually the sister from book 1. I really didn't like her in book 1, so I wasn't all that excited to read about her in book 2, but by the end of this, I did at least not hate her, so I guess that's a plus. It's got the roommates trope. Giselle goes to stay with Devin, who is a famous football player. Giselle is a bit of a nerd, and Devin is of course your classic player athlete. She is kind of hopeless when it comes to sex and dating, so Devin agrees to help her be her matchmaker. He ends up being jealous, falling for her. It pretty much plays out how you would expect. So sadly, as much as I wish I could have loved this one more, it was just pretty average for me. And then I read Go Deep and Deeper by Rilzy Adams. I have to be honest, I was really dumb and accidentally read Deeper, the sequel novella, first. I could not tell you why I thought this was the first book. I didn't even bother checking on Goodreads. I just got it on Amazon, and Amazon didn't show that whole series order thing on the page, so again, I thought it was the first book. So when I read Deeper, I was like, wow, this kind of reads like an epilogue because it's literally these 2 main characters getting married. I did still give it 4 stars though, because it was short, hot, and sweet. But then my dumb self finally read the first book, Go Deep, and I enjoyed this one a lot as well. I gave it 4 stars. It's friends to lovers, and I was so hyped to read it ever since I saw Syl from the Book Voyagers rave about it. Our 2 best friends, Nevaeh and Xander, have always seen each other platonically. Nothing has ever happened between them, but ever since Nevaeh, who is an erotica writer, she has gotten into a slump. She needs sexual inspiration, and that's where Xander comes in, literally. They sleep with each other for the first time, and sparks are flying. I love friends to lovers, so it was really easy to me to enjoy this novella. I love the friendship, the foundations of their friendship, and the natural progression of their romance. It was all really well written. It was also really hot and steamy. I mean, Xander gives Nevaeh some good inspiration. It was great, and I definitely want to read more Rilzy Adams books now. Next, I read another novella, Leap by Dylan Allen. I've been wanting to read Dylan Allen for a while, but this was the only book that was available at my library. I'm requesting more of her books for my library. I just hit that limit every week, so I have to wait a bit. But Leap is basically a second chance romance with some gravel. It is a short book, so things do go quickly, but I really enjoyed it. I give it 4 stars. Lewis and Kara fall in love. She gets a job that is out of the country, and Lewis breaks up with her before he thinks that she will break up with him. But she was never about to break up with him, which means Lewis breaks her heart and his heart for nothing, and he's got some groveling to do to win her back. And if you know me, you know that anytime I hear the word groveling, I need to read that book. So this one was great. It is a novella that's part of a series that I haven't read yet, but it reads fine as a standalone. And then I finally read Wild Like Us by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This book has been quite contentious. I can't say that I was super excited to read this one, though I also wasn't, hating the pairing either. It's Krista and Becca Ritchie's first polyamorous romance with 3 main characters. We have Sully, Akara, and Banks. Akara and Banks are bodyguards. They are Sully's bodyguards. We've known for a while that Sully has been in love with Akara since forever, and Akara kind of has feelings for her, but has never really shown it. In the last book, we do get to see some build-up of tension between Banks and Sully, which was great because we definitely needed that, and this whole tension between them finally explodes in Wild Like Us, mainly because all 3 of them are getting really close together physically because of their trip to Yellowstone so that Sully can go free solo climbing. They're camping together, they're sleeping in a tent together, so tensions rise. I did enjoy this one overall, though it wasn't like a new favorite or anything. I give it 3.5 stars. I am a little annoyed that we still don't get that happily ever after. We have to wait a little bit to get more stories about these 3. Right now I'm more into Banks than I am Akara, which was pretty surprising. I did not expect to feel this way, but it's not a love triangle. It's not like it's a competition or anything. I just prefer Banks right now. I just loved how Banks was with Sully, though I do like the friendship between Banks and Akara as well. There's still a lot to be explored, so even though I didn't fully love this one, I'm definitely gonna keep reading. And then I read one of the hottest books that I've read in a while, Love Unexpected by QB Tyler. This one was such a good, steamy, age gap forbidden romance. There's not a lot that can turn me off of something, off of a romance, so him being her stepfather was not a big deal for me, though I can totally understand it being a big deal to other people. But yeah, he is her stepfather. There is a pretty big age gap. The mother does die in the beginning. There is a huge forbidden element, taboo element, obviously. But when Stacy and Dominic go on this little vacation together to take a break from everything going on, you can tell how much tension and chemistry is between them. Stacy and Dominic get super hot and heavy, a little bit kinky, and it was so good. The steam was amazing. It was so hot. I love these two together. This one has made me a huge fan of QB Tyler, not gonna lie. There is some slight daddy kink, so if you're into that, read it. I just had so much fun reading this one, and I already have another QB Tyler book downloaded because I need more of her smut in my life. I then read Teach Me by Alexandria House. This one was a recommendation from Charles, Books on Stereo. He loved it and I sadly did not. I gave this one 3 stars. I'm a big Alexandria House fan, but sadly this one just didn't really work for me. It's a professor-student romance with a professor heroine and a single dad student hero. The first half was really great. I was really enjoying the romance, but then the second half kind of goes off the rails. There is so much over-the-top drama going on, and I don't like that, especially when things get wrapped up really easily and quickly after all this drama. I also wasn't too into the BDSM element of this one. Kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. So sadly, this one was just a 3-star read for me. Next up, I read my first Be Celeste book, who I've been wanting to read since I've seen a lot of people loving her on YouTube and on Instagram. So I read The Truth About Heartbreak because my library got it. Sadly, I kind of hated it. I gave it 2 stars, which honestly was a higher rating than I thought I was going to give it when I first started it. I was so ready to just give this one 1 star because I hated the hero so much, but the heroine does make up for him a little bit. It's a forbidden cheating romance. The hero cheats on his girlfriend with the heroine. It's kind of a coming of age new adult romance because we do get to see our main characters as really young kids. He is her brother's best friend, and of course River has been in love with Everett her entire life. He is a bit older, so while she's 13, he is like in his senior year of high school. Everett gets with his on and off girlfriend who causes a lot of drama throughout the book. You can see River growing up, becoming of age, and Everett slowly falling in love with her back, except for the fact that he's still with Isabel. There is a reason that he never fully breaks up with her that you can kind of guess from almost the beginning, but I just did not see this reason as why he should have stayed with her for these 10 years, and while he falls in love with River, Everett and Isabel basically make the heroine's life hell, and I just did not see why she was still in love with him after so long. I wanted her to finally move on from him, have him grow up and finally make decisions for himself. Everett really was a trash hero. He was spineless and I really hated him. So as much as I love angst, this was not my favorite kind of angst. I hate when heroes have stupid, dumb reasons for hurting the heroine, and this book was exactly that. I finally listened to The AI Who Loved Me by Ilsa Cole, which is like an Audible exclusive kind of thing, though I think it's available in ebook now, but it is narrated by some big names if you listen to the audiobook. It's like a sci-fi romance kind of novella. We have a robot hero. The heroine works for the government, but there's some mystery going on, some suspense. I'm not going to say too much because I feel like it's best to go into this one blind, because I love the plot twist in this one. I did not expect it. The blurb does say it's a rom-com, but I do not remember a single funny thing from it. But if you are interested in reading a sci-fi novella with a very good plot twist, highly recommend this one. I give it 4 stars. Next, I read Desolate by Autumn Gray. This one is a new adult romance with a almost priest hero. So I guess you could consider this a forbidden romance, but he is not a priest just yet. He's just thinking of becoming a priest and going to preschool or whatever it's called, right before the hero Saul is about to commit his life to a priesthood. He meets Grace, and Grace makes him question everything, question his life, question what he wants, because he does fall in love with her and she falls in love with him back. Unfortunately, he is still torn between choosing her and choosing the priesthood, so there's quite a bit of angst going on. It's the first book in a trilogy. I haven't had the chance to finish it just yet, mainly because my library doesn't have the next two books, but I'm about to recommend them. But I really enjoyed this one. I loved our main characters, and I gave this one 4 stars. Then I read Truth or Dare by Danielle Allen. I know Sil loves this one, I know Jessica loves this one, and it was great. I give it 4 stars. We have a group of best friends who come together for this destination wedding, and anytime this group gets together, they always play Truth or Dare. Simone and Kingston are our 2 main characters. They have been best friends, well, good friends, for a very long time, so things are platonic between them, except that Kingston kind of had a glow up and he shows up really hot at this wedding. And when they play Truth or Dare, things heat up between them because they're dared to do something sexy. It's short, quick, and hot. It's a great friends to lovers romance. I like the group of friends. All these side characters felt really solid, even though it was a pretty short read. I really liked Danielle Allen's writing. It was my first time reading her, and now I really want to read more of her. Next, I listened to 2 KU reads. They were both kind of forgettable, unfortunately. One was Hooking Him by Aurora Rose Reynolds. This is part of the How to Catch an Alpha series, the 3rd and final book. It's another insta-lovey kind of romance from this author, which normally I wouldn't be too mad at, but all our stories kind of run the same together. The hero is a detective. There's been some murders going on in town, but the suspense part isn't really too fleshed out. I honestly could have done without the whole murder plot, because the romance, I mean, it was average, it was cute, so I gave this one 3 stars. The other book that I listened to was Yours to Keep by Lauren Lane. It's been a while since I read some Lauren Lane books, and I thought since I have KU, I might as well listen to the books that are available on KU. The series of hers, though, is not that great. There's no Lauren Lane charm to it. This one I gave 2.5 stars. It was just really, really boring. I didn't feel the chemistry between our main characters. Even though this is Friends to Lovers, and I love Friends to Lovers, I just couldn't get into it. I was really excited about the whole fact that Olive and Carter were former science class partners. He's now a famous baseball player and they reunite at their high school reunion. It was just a bit bland and forgettable. I really wouldn't recommend it unless you had nothing else to read or listen to. After this, I went back on the Julia Quinn train. I finished up the Dukes of Wyndham duet. Book 2, Mr. Cavendish, I presume, I gave 2 stars to. I did not like this one as much as book 1, which was so good. I was really disappointed with how things played out in the sequel. I wasn't really wanting a whole replay of what happened in book 1, but that's exactly what I got. We have the current Duke of Wyndham, Thomas, who may or may not be the Duke anymore. He has a fiance, Amelia, who is our heroine, and they don't really have feelings for each other. It's supposed to be a marriage of convenience, and Amelia has been waiting for him over the past few years that they've been engaged, but now that Thomas's dukedom is in jeopardy, his engagement with Amelia is not certain anymore either. I wanted more romance. I wanted Thomas to realize that he had something special that's been under his nose this whole time. He really took Amelia for granted, and I kind of wanted him to show how much he cared about her more than he did in the book, because it wasn't really all that much. So this book was a very weak sequel. I finished up the Rokesby series, read books 1 through 3. Because of Miss Bridgerton is book 1. I gave it 3.5 stars. Billy is one of the Bridgertons. She's always been a tomboy. She has a great friendship with 2 of the Rokesby's brothers. She does not get along with the oldest, George, and of course he's the one that she falls in love with. It's fun, it's lighthearted, there is some banter going on, but nothing really all that special about this book. I did like the introduction of the Rokesby family, who are really great family friends with the Bridgertons. It's a good first book, but definitely not my favorite of the series. Book 2, The Girl with a Make-Believe Husband, is probably my favorite. I gave this one 4 stars. This one is about another Rokesby brother, Edward, who has gone off to war. He gets hurt during battle, so he's unconscious when Cecilia goes to him. And the reason why Cecilia goes to him him and pretends to be his wife is that she's looking for her missing brother who is also injured during battle. When Edward wakes up, he's got a bit of amnesia. He doesn't remember the last few months, which means he doesn't remember that he supposedly married Cecilia. There's a slight suspenseful plot to this, but I just love the romance here. I loved Edward, Cecilia, and their fake marriage. Edward was a great guy, so he didn't really deserve to be lied to, but still, I really enjoyed this one. I'm a sucker for amnesia plots in romances, especially historical romances, and this one worked out really great. And the third Rokesby book, The Other Miss Bridgerton, is about Poppy Bridgerton and Andrew Rokesby. Andrew is a sea captain. He pretends to be a pirate, but he really works for the government. Poppy shows up at the wrong place in the wrong time and is forced to go onto his ship and stay there for the next 2 weeks. Most of the book takes place at sea while they're traveling to Portugal, and Poppy and Andrew get to know each other because there's nothing else to do really on the ship. They slowly fall for each other, even though it's a very rough start in the beginning because she is essentially kidnapped, but it is a cute and fun story. It did drag on a little bit because, again, it's all taking place on a ship, but I did like it overall, so 3.5 to 4 stars for this book. I then read a couple books for the Lunar New Year readathon that I co-host with my best friend Lisa from Remarkably Lisa. I read The Trouble with Hating You by Sajni Patel, which is a debut romance. It is kind of an office romance because the hero, who's a lawyer, he's been hired to save the heroine's company. They run into each other all the time at the office. There's some cute banter between them, but Leah is very happily a single woman and doesn't really want to be set up by her parents, who have set her up with the hero Jay. There's also a whole side plot with her having been sexually assaulted as a child, not being believed by her parents, and everyone thinking that she is essentially a slut. I was really impressed with the way that Sajni Patel wrote that whole aspect. It's not glossed over or anything, and it's pretty infuriating to read about. It was a great solid read though, a good South Asian romance, and I'm very excited to read more from this author. I also read Her Husband's Harlot by Grace Calloway. I've been wanting to read Grace Calloway for a while, and I finally did. She's a historical romance author, and this is the first book in the Mayhem in Mayfair series. It's a pretty interesting setup. I gave this one around 3.5 stars. Our main characters are newly married. The hero Nicholas feels like he's not good enough for his wife, who is a lady. He was formerly like a merchant and recently discovered that he's an heir of a marquis. Their first night in bed together didn't really go well. He hurt her a little bit too much and he hated himself for that, so he decides to turn to a prostitute. He decides to go to a bordello to sate his needs, and his wife, Helena, decides to follow him. Helena is of course really confused about why Nicholas is rejecting her and doesn't want her or her body. While they're at the whorehouse, Helena disguises herself and pretends to be one of the prostitutes. She seduces her husband as a prostitute, so there's not really technically any cheating going on. It's a pretty steamy read, and our married main couple have a lot to overcome before they get their happy marriage. It was a good first book for me from Grace Calloway. Didn't fully love it, but I did enjoy the writing and the steam. I started a mafia romance series that's been on my TBR for a while, the Hitman series by Jessica Clair and Jen Frederick. I read the first 2 books. Book 1 is Last Hit. This one is a pretty insta-lovey mafia romance that's not too heavy with the mafia, which was fine by me. I was in the perfect mood for an over-the-top obsessed alpha hero who basically falls for the heroine on sight, and that's exactly what Nikolai does. Nikolai is a contract killer, a mercenary, and as soon as he meets Daisy, he wants her, so he pretends to not be a killer, spoils her, tries to make her fall in love with him. Daisy is quite naive and innocent and easily falls for Nick. I can't say that there was all that much substance to their romance or even the plot, but sometimes I just want something really easy and hot. The mafia aspect also lacked as well, but I honestly didn't really care about that. I was just having fun reading about Nikolai and Daisy, so 4 stars for me. The second book in the Hitman series is called Last Breath. I didn't quite love this one as much as I did book 1. I gave this one 3 stars. Reagan, the heroine, is Daisy's friend from book 1, and unfortunately she has been sold into human trafficking. She's stuck at a brothel. She goes through some tough times, is abused, but she does kind of get over it pretty quickly after. She's saved by the hero Daniel, girl who has experience looking for people because his sister is missing and he's been looking for her for years. The romance was okay. I wasn't too into it, maybe because I was expecting more insta-lust like the first book was. There's a bit more of the mafia aspect, the dark romance aspect in this book. It was still really entertaining. I just wasn't quite as into it as I was with book 1. Then I read Alisha Rai's First Comes Like, which is book 3 in her modern love series. We finally get Gia's story with this book, and she falls for a famous Bollywood actor. It's a pretty interesting meet cute. Gia thinks that she's been messaging Dave, the hero, but turns out someone has been catfishing as Dave. So when they first meet at some Hollywood party, Dave obviously does not know who Gia is, and Gia is very confused. They really don't have a reason to ever talk to each other or meet each other again, except that Dave realizes that it might have been a family member who catfished Gia, and then Gia asks Dave to fake date her so that she can get her family off her back. The romance here is very sweet but very slow. There's not much that develops until maybe the last 20% of the book, and because it was left all towards the end, that part felt rushed. I did like how unique the main characters were, how unique the storyline was, but I think it was a little bit too slow for me, which is why I'm only giving it 3.5 stars. It's sadly my least favorite of the series, but still worth a try if you really love the first 2 books. My next read, Wicked Bite by Janine Frost, actually took me a year to read. I started my arc about a year ago, last January. This is book 2 in the Night Rebel series. We're back with Ian and Veritas. If you didn't know, this series is paranormal romance, all about vampires. I loved book 1. I mean, I love the Night Huntress world, and I was so excited, but for some reason I just never finished it when I started it last year. But I finally finished it, probably because the 3rd book was about to release, and it was great. I gave it 4 stars. It continues pretty much where book 1 left off, so Ian and Veritas are kind of separated. Ian has lost his memories, so he's trying to figure out why his wife Veritas has left him. Meanwhile, Veritas is doing her very best to keep Ian alive. Ian, with his wily ways, maneuvers Veritas into teaming up with him again, and they travel around the world to try to get the bad guy. I love Ian. I mean, Vlad is still my favorite Janine Frost hero, but Ian is fantastic too. I love his humor. I love his charm. He was the biggest player in the series, and now he is very happy to try out marriage and monogamy. It does end on another slight cliffhanger, but I had so much fun reading this. I was so happy to be back in this world. Jessica Cain dropped another new release this month, so of course I dropped everything to read it. This one is My Best Friend, My Stalker. The title pretty much says it all. The hero saves the heroine one night while she's running away, becomes her best friend and stalker. It's classic Jessica Cain with insta love. It's over the top with an obsessed hero. It's hot. It really hit the spot for me, so I gave this one 4 stars. I finally caught myself up on the Side Changeling Trinity and read Alpha Night by Nalini Singh. This is book 4 in the Side Changing Trinity series, and we finally get the story about the alpha wolf, the female alpha wolf of Russia. There are 3 main alphas in Russia. We got 2 of them already, so Selenka was the last one. This alpha wolf changeling falls for an arrow for Ethan, who has quite the traumatic past. It's actually a mating at first sight, which I don't think we've gotten before. As soon as they meet, Selenka and her wolf know that Ethan is theirs, and Ethan is very protective of Selenka from the very beginning. The romance is so sweet, and even though it is a mating at first sight, the actual romance and love part does progress a bit slowly, mainly because Ethan has his psychic problems. There's been a murder in Selenka's pack, but it was a great read. I mean, if you know me, you know I love Nalini Singh. I love the Side Changing series. I was so happy we got an alpha wolf changeling for a heroine, and we got to know more about the Black Edge pack. I gave this one 4 stars, and I am just dying for the next book now. Next, I read The Beast of Beswick by Amalie Howard. I'm saying Beswick instead of Beswick, which is what I thought it was pronounced, but Beswick is what the audiobook says, so I'm just gonna go with that. We have a Beauty and the Beast retelling in this historical romance and a marriage of convenience, so it was easy to like this one. I gave it 4 stars. Astrid, the heroine, is trying to save her younger sister from being forced to marry the man who ruined Astrid a very long time ago. She decides to get help from the notorious Beast of Beswick, who is a beast to be around. He's a scarred hero, a huge grump, but they do agree on a marriage of convenience. Love is not at all involved at the beginning of their marriage, but they do start to slowly fall for each other, except that Thane does push Astrid away a bit too much. There's a lot of push and pull between between these two, lots of chemistry, though I did get a little bit annoyed with Thane constantly pushing Astrid away. But I did really enjoy the writing. It was great in audio, so for my first time reading this author, I liked it. I then binged on all 3 books in the Love After series by Alexandria House. I think after I finished the series, I finished all the books that were available from my library by Alexandria House, so that was really sad. The series is not my favorite, but it is pretty fun. Apparently, the series was Alexandria House's very first published series. Book 1 is Higher Love. We have a popular travel blogger for a heroine who has just found out that her boyfriend just got engaged to someone else. Greer finds out about this while she's traveling at a festival, and that's where she meets Derek and they spend some hot nights together. The romance was sweet, though the author could have developed it a little bit more. They just fall into bed and then start falling for each other immediately. There's a bit of drama at the second half of the book, and Greer overreacts, in my opinion, about something that I wasn't a big fan of. So this one I gave 3 stars. Definitely not one of Alexandria House's best. The second book, Made to Love, I did like a little bit more, mainly because of the hero Niles, who is so great. He is a spoken word artist and we get some poems from him. When Niles meets Trevia, he knows that she's the one for him. Unfortunately, Trevia has quite a bit of issues going on. She has an ex who is lying and cheating on her, but she has a hard time letting him go, which causes a lot of problems between Trevia and Niles. So as much as Trevia's dumb decisions got on my nerves, Niles did make up for it in the end. The next book, Real Love, is the 3rd and final book about the 3rd friend in this girl group. I gave this one another 3.5 stars. It was very close to a 4, but there's something that happens at the end, this reveal that is pretty much glossed over a bit too easily. Our heroine Denise is the fiery one of the trio. She has a bit of a hot temper, which makes her so fun to read. The first time she meets the hero, he actually goes to the bank where she works to try to get a loan, but there's nothing she can do and she refuses him. He wants to open up his own tattoo parlor, and with Denise's advice, he eventually does. It was a pretty great read, probably my favorite of the series. Hassan has this big plot twisty secret that's revealed in the end, and that causes so much drama. But my favorite part about this whole series was mainly the friendship between all the heroines. They're protective, they help each other out, and they also call each other out when they know someone is making dumb decisions. It was great. So if you want to read about a strong female friendship group, you can definitely try the series out. And then I read some Monica Murphy books. It's been a while since I last read Monica Murphy, but I read her dating series. I started her dating series, read the first 2 books. I enjoyed both of them so much. It's basically like rich hero fantasies in a book. Book 1 is Save the Date, and the heroine Caroline works with stationery. She helps engaged couples make wedding invitations, and her newest client, the groom, is actually her first kiss. Alex was Caroline's brother's best friend, but he's all grown up now. He's filthy rich, running his family's luxury hotel. Unfortunately, Caroline catches the bride cheating on Alex, so she tells him and things break off, but then Alex needs a fake fiance and he gets Caroline to help him out. This book was pure fluff and fun. I would not take this book seriously, but that's what I liked about it so much. This applies to book 2 as well. We have a hero who's filthy rich who spoils the heroine. I really like the whole fake fiance trope, though sometimes Alex did need a kick in the butt, but I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. I also enjoyed book 2, Fake Date, and gave it 4 stars. This has another fake dating trope. The heroine Sarah works at this luxury lingerie store, and Jared, our businessman, our rich businessman hero, always seems to stop by the shop and buy from her. He buys a ton of lingerie, and what Sarah doesn't know is that the lingerie is not really for anybody. Jared just wants to be around Sarah all the time. So already this romance was off to an over-the-top start, and I was here for it. Sarah was a great heroine, even though she's young. She's 10 years younger than Jared. She has a lot of responsibility. She's been raising her younger siblings, and there's also some really great female friendships in this book. Jared, it takes a while for you to warm up to him. He's a jerk, he feels entitled to things, but he does grow up and he does grow on you by the end. Both the books in the dating series just worked really well for me. They're silly and over the top, but that's exactly why I enjoyed them. And then I read the behemoth that was A Court of Silver Flames. I do have my full video review, so you can check it out. I won't talk too much about it in this wrap up. I gave this one 4 stars. I did like it, but more in the second half of the book than the first half. I didn't love love Nesta and Cassian quite as much as I was expecting to, but once I got over the very slow first half, I did enjoy it. I liked being back in this world. I liked how Nesta finds her own family, her own found family. Right now though, I am just dying for Azriel's story, and I am 100% on Team Quinn. I finally finished up the Green Creek series by TJ Klune. I read the 3rd and 4th books, Heart Song and Brother Song. Heart Song book 3 is Robbie and Kelly's story. When I first started this one, I was a little bit confused because Robbie apparently has lost all his memories. He's with the other alpha, Michelle Hughes, and not with the Bennett pack. He's forgotten all about his mate Kelly and thinks that the Bennett pack are traitors. So there is a lot going on for Robbie, and the Bennetts trying to get Robbie to remember everything. I gave this one 4 stars. It wasn't as perfect as book 1 was, but I did love being back in the Green Creek world. I love the Bennett family and their friends. They're always so much fun to read about. Despite all the heartbreak that happens in the series, I always end up laughing because of how funny the Bennetts are, their friends are. So Heart Song was a great 3rd book, but then Brother Song hits you right in the gut. Brother Song, I'm giving 5 stars too. I loved it. It was such a fantastic ending to this epic series. If you love a feral, savage hero who grew up in the wild, that's exactly what Gavin is. He's a wolf that's been following Carter around for a very long time, but it turns out he's a shifter. This 4th book in the Green Creek series is definitely not one you can read as a standalone. You definitely need to read the series in order because this book is a culmination of everything that happens in the first 3 books. It's beautiful, it's heart-wrenching, we finally get a conclusion with the bad guy. It was just the perfect ending to the series, and I'm so glad that I finally read it. And then I read the February book pick for Ravished by Romance, which I co-host with my friend Jessica from Peace Love Books. A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair is a Hades and Persephone fantasy romance retelling. There's a pretty wide range of ratings for this book, but I ended up really enjoying it. It's like 3.5 to 4 stars for me. It's like a new adult fantasy romance. Persephone is attending college. She wants to be a journalist. Her mother Demeter has hidden her godlike abilities so that she can blend in with the mortals, but at the same time, Persephone doesn't really have any powers, or at least that's what she believes. She meets Hades at a bar that he owns, and they're both really intrigued by each other, and they make a bet. Persephone has to create life in the underworld or else she loses her freedom. I really like the tension between Hades and Persephone. Their story was really addicting. Like, I couldn't put it down. Even though it wasn't perfect, I still really enjoyed it and thought it was entertaining. I'm definitely going to be continuing with the series, especially with the books that are told in Hades's point of view. Next, I read The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas, who is a bookstagrammer turned indie author, and I loved it. I loved it so much I had to get myself the paperback. It was 5 stars for me. I was just swooning while I was reading this one. It is such a good slow burn romance, enemies to lovers, office romance. Catalina and Aaron both work at the same company and they hate each other. They always get on each other's nerves. So it is quite a surprise when Aaron offers to be a fake boyfriend for Catalina when she goes back home to Spain for a wedding. Right off the bat, you can pretty much tell that Aaron is not quite the guy that Catalina thinks that he is. Catalina hates Aaron because she thinks that he hates her, but through all these little details, we find out clearly that Aaron definitely has feelings for Catalina. Catalina is oblivious though, but she is just so much fun to read about that I didn't even mind that. Aaron and Lena are just so cute and adorable together, not just when they're pretending to be dating, but when they're alone as well. The slow burn was so well written. I love the chemistry between these two. I just love the way that Aaron was with Lena. He's a bit cold and stoic, but when he's with Lena, he just softens and is so tender with her when she allows him to be. It was just a fantastic debut. If you love enemies to lovers, office romance, or fake relationships in your romances, you definitely need to read this book. And my last 2 reads of February were both by Meghan Quinn. I read 2 books in the Brentwood Boys series. The series I read completely out of order, mainly because of which books that my library gets. But the first Meghan Quinn book that I read that month was The Change Up. First off, it's got a great cover. I mean, all the covers in this series are great. I gave this one 4 stars. It's like 3.5 to 4 stars. I was just really annoyed at how bad of a roommate the heroine was. So it's got the roommate trope. It's friends to lovers. The heroine needs a place to stay. The hero has a place to stay. They're best friends, so she moves in. I normally love the roommate trope. I love the forced proximity, and it was okay here. I was just so annoyed with how bad Kingsley was. She would have been the worst roommate to live with, and I don't know how Maddox did it. She's messy, she doesn't clean after herself, she invites people without Maddox knowing. So for me personally, this would have been a nightmare. Romance wise though, it was really cute. I love the friends to lovers part. They're really cute together. There's some fun banter. There is some groveling at the end that needs to happen, but I really liked it overall. The next book that I read was The Setup, which was the last book I read that month, and this one I struggled with a lot more. I gave it 3 stars. It's another friends to lovers sports romance, but this time we get to see the development of this friendship in this book. Lincoln's mom tries to set him up with Indy, who is our heroine, but instead of a romance blooming, a friendship blooms. They form this rock solid friendship their senior year of college before Lincoln has to leave to play professional baseball. But once these two graduate and Lincoln leaves is when this book went downhill for me. This part of the book takes place across several years, and each year Indy and Lincoln drift further and further apart. I was not feeling the romance here. I was really feeling pretty depressed over what was happening. I guess you could consider this one slow burn, but I was just not interested anymore in what was happening in this part of the story, so that's why I'm only giving this one 3 stars. Those are all the books that I read last month. Let me know your thoughts if you read any of them. As always, links to them will be down in the description below. Thank you so much for watching this long video. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!